Rank 1 skill, the 100-arm fists reached the point of mastery. Cries of surprise sounded in the hall, and everyone could see that Chu Zhen was able to fully use that skill. Although the 100-armed fist was only a rank 1 skill, if it was mastered, it would be very strong as well. If they were on the same level, and if there wasn't an appropriate skill to counter it, he would have no chance. That was why everyone knew that Chu Feng, without a doubt, would lose. Chu Yue frowned and secretly walked 2 steps forward. She wanted to stop Chu Zhen's evil schemes. Chu Yue, observers cannot help. You should know this rule, right? But just at that time, she heard a sound next to her ear. She turned around and she saw that Chu Cheng was smiling and staring at herself. Chu Yue knew that the situation was not good, since she never thought that Chu Cheng would have his eyes on her. However, because of that, it meant that the 2 brothers would not easily let Chu Feng go, and that made her even more worried. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The afterimages of the fists filled the air and almost completely blocked Chu Feng's line of sight. With the sound of breaking through the air, he suddenly attacked. Chu Feng could feel that Chu Zhen's fist was not ordinary, and he did not restrain himself in any way. It showed that he was very ruthless. But Chu Feng was not afraid at all, and he stood still. He did not dodge nor escape, and he only silently waited for the attack. Is this Chu Feng stupid? Why isn't he dodging? He wants to dodge, but could he? With his power, he probably can't react in time. That's true. He is, after all, the trash that stayed in the outer court for 5 years. Seeing that Chu Feng did not dodge, they even thought that Chu Feng was scared stiff by Chu Zhen's might, and their faces revealed the smiles of seeing others in misfortune. Whoo! But just as Chu Zhen got near, Chu Feng suddenly waved his sleeve, and an extremely huge aura exploded from inside his body. When that aura pounced at Chu Zhen, he was suddenly at a loss because within that aura, he felt killing intent. Whoosh! Just as Chu Zhen was staring blankly, Chu Feng suddenly stuck his palm out. The speed was extremely fast, and before anyone reacted to it, he already blasted it onto Chu Zhen's chest. Boom! With the strike of the palm, Chu Zhen instantly felt that his qi and blood were raging as a wave of pain came from his chest. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. But before he even had time to think, Chu Feng already sent a few more palms and they all struck Chu Zhen. Ah! Chu Zhen cried out loud. Both his legs went numb and he directly kneeled in front of Chu Feng, then fell on the ground without power. The scene widened everyone's mouth. They would have never thought that Chu Feng would have such an explosive power. However, they didn't even know that it was the result of Chu Feng restraining himself. Or else with only 1 palm he could have killed Chu Zhen. You are at the 4th level of the spirit realm? At that time, Chu Wei opened his mouth. Both his eyes tightly stared at Chu Feng, and they were filled with astonishment. What? 4th level of the spirit realm? With those words, everyone came to their senses. To beat someone at the 3rd level of the spirit realm without using martial skills meant that they required the power of the 4th level of the spirit realm. However, trying to connect 4th level of the spirit realm with Chu Feng was unimaginable, and it was hard to accept by the crowd. Not only them, even Chu Yue had her eyes wide open. Her small mouth slowly opened, and her face was full of surprise. Chu Feng didn't care about the crowd. He directly walked in front of the table, took the 3 Saint Spirit grasses, and walked towards the door. Stop right there. This is an exchange between family members, yet you attacked so heavily. Where is your heart? Just at that time, someone suddenly yelled out. Looking over, Chu Cheng was holding Chu Zhen by the arm and lifting him up while his face was full of anger. It was not endurable when his younger brother got beaten up by someone to this extent. What? When did you see me as part of your family? I don't recall you saying that before. Chu Feng lightly smiled and said, even you said it. Fists and kicks don't have eyes, so you cannot complain about any injuries. What are you doing right now? You can't take the loss. I can't take the loss. It's obvious that you intentionally heavily attacked. Chu Zhen bit his teeth to endure the pain and loudly lashed out. As the victim, he was very clear that Chu Feng's first palm already defeated him. But Chu Feng continued to bombard him with more attacks, so it was obvious that it was intentional, and he wanted to humiliate him even more. As he listened to that, Chu Feng smiled again. I just entered the 4th level of the spirit realm, so I don't understand my strength that much. And before, your skill seemed so strong, So naturally, I didn't dare to underestimate it, and I used my full strength to answer your attack. But who would have thought that you were just like a paper tiger, so weak that you couldn't even take one hit? I overestimated you a bit. You. After listening to Chu Feng's words, Chu Zhen's face was pale. He was so angry that every breath he was taking made huge sounds, and he almost spit out his own liver out from all the puffing. Not only was he defeated by the garbage, he was even mocked in front of the crowd. It was extremely hard for him to accept that, but even if he wasn't willing to, he could say nothing about it because the rules just now were made by him and his brother. Chu Feng, don't be too arrogant. If you have the guts, then let's go right now. Just at that time, another person from the Chu family stood up. Oh, you want to duel me as well? That's fine. Just bet a Saint Spirit grass. Do you dare? Chu Feng stretched his hand towards that person. You. That person was the same as Chu Zhen, as he also entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as Chu Feng. However, his strength was not strong as Chu Zhen. He did dare to duel Chu Feng, but he did not dare if he had to bet the Saint Spirit grass. What's wrong? If there's anyone else who wants to go, you can come right now as long as you don't mind parting with your Saint Spirit grass. Chu Feng scanned his gaze at the crowd, but not one of them dared to look at him in the eyes. They were not afraid of Chu Feng. They just didn't dare to take the Saint Spirit grass as a wager because those were their lifeline. Chu Feng, don't be excessive. Finally, Chu Wei talked. What's this? Chu Wei, you also want to go? If I'm not mistaken, you are 5 years older than me, right? Follow newest stories at novelbean.com. If you don't mind people saying that you are bullying the young, I don't mind. After all, if I lose, I won't lose face. And if I win, I'll earn big, right? As he listened to those words, Chu Wei clenched his fists, but he said nothing more. It was because Chu Feng was correct. Chu Wei was not like Chu Cheng or Chu Zhen, since there was not much of an age difference between them and Chu Feng. However, Chu Wei couldn't because he was not a youth anymore. With his age, even if he defeated Chu Feng, he would be ridiculed by others, so that was why he could not attack. Seeing that most of the people in the hall lowered their heads, Chu Feng suddenly laughed. He laughed very happily, but before turning around and leaving, he said, I'll give everyone here 2 phrases before I leave. The first is, thinking that you are infallible. The second is, self-ridicule. As for the meanings behind them, all of you can comprehend them by yourselves. After saying that, Chu Feng forced the door open and left elegantly. At that instant, the atmosphere in the residence became very awkward. Originally, the Chu family wanted Chu Feng to be humiliated, but now, they got humiliated by Chu Feng in front of several outsiders instead. That really made them feel that they had no more face. But the most unacceptable thing was Chu Feng's strength. Originally, they thought that Chu Feng was the garbage of the Chu family. But now, Chu Feng was at the 4th level of the spirit realm, and he surpassed many people. That made them feel a lot of shame. Chu Feng walked out of the residence, and he felt refreshed in his heart. Pretty much from his younger times until now, he was bullied by those people, and finally, he bullied them back today. Actually, that wasn't bullying. Chu Feng was only forced by them. But no matter what, Chu Feng felt extremely refreshed. Chu Feng. Before Chu Feng even walked far, a sweet call came from behind him, and it was Chu Yu. Chu Yue, why did you come out? Chu Feng asked confusedly. Chu Yue ran to Chu Feng's side while laughing, and using her white hand, she lightly punched Chu Feng's chest and said happily, You're quite good. I was saying why you were so calm when you were in the outer court. But now, after a day, you already caught up to me. Chu Feng embarrassedly shook his head. Chu Yue, I've given you troubles today, and it seems that your Chu Alliance gathering has to end unhappily. Don't worry, giving them a lesson is good, or else they would bully you all day. That's right. Chu Feng, let's go together in the spiritual medicine hunt tomorrow. Those things are very hard to catch alone. You know my relationship with them. Even if I was willing to join the Chu Alliance, they wouldn't be willing to. Chu Feng shook his head. Don't worry about those things and just leave it to me. Just come and find us here tomorrow. Chu Yue gave another bamboo sheet to Chu Feng, and on there was the gathering location for the Chu Alliance tomorrow. Fine. Seeing Chu Yue being so persistent, Chu Feng could not bear to refuse it. After appeasing Chu Feng, Chu Yue jumped and bounced back to the residence. She was really happy today because Chu Feng gave her a huge surprise. Everyone in the world respected strength, and seeing that Chu Feng revealed unordinary strength, she felt that perhaps people from the Chu family would start to accept Chu Feng. To unify the Chu family without discrimination was her biggest wish. Chu Wei, you guys. But just as she arrived in front of the residence, Chu Yue found out that all the Chu Alliance members already left. Chu Cheng and Chu Zhen fiercely glared at Chu Yue, said nothing and left. Chu Yue, it's not like I want to say it, but today you sided too much with that Chu Feng. Now you've done it. Not only did Chu Feng take 2 Saint Spirit grasses from us, we even got insulted by him. Now everyone left in anger. Are you happy now? Chu Wei reprimanded strictly. Chu Wei, just view it as my fault and don't blame him. In any case, Chu Feng is still part of our Chu family. Look, you've seen Chu Feng's strength. He isn't the trash in your eyes. Also, our Chu Alliance needs people now, so why not let him join? Listening to Chu Yue say that, Chu Wei's face instantly changed. But as he was going to say something, a strange flicker appeared in his eyes, and at the end, he sighed helplessly. I can't do anything about you. Fine, I'll give Chu Feng another chance. Bring him tomorrow. That's great, you're the best. Chu Yue jumped excitedly and her smile was especially splendid. Okay, hurry up and rest early. Chu Wei shook his head and walked towards his own residence. Chu Wei, you should also rest early. Chu Yue smiled and waved at Chu Wei, then followed Chu Wei with her eyes as he left. Chu Wei allowing Chu Feng to enter the Chu Alliance made Chu Yue happy beyond her expectations. But what she didn't see was that the moment Chu Wei turned his body around, a sinister smile was formed by his mouth. Senior Chu Yue, the one called Chu Feng, concealed himself quite deeply. I've stayed in the outer court for so long, but I've never even heard his name before. It seems like he was aiming to be the first in the disciple exam. Just at that time, a young man walked over. He was the same as Chu Feng, also being a new disciple this year. He just joined the Chu Alliance today. You're correct. Chu Feng must have stayed in the outer court for the exam reward. I wonder if he got it or not. Listening to what he said, Chu Yue also suddenly realized that. Senior Chu Yue, you're thinking too much. A fierce character appeared in this year's outer court and that person got first place. Although Chu Feng has quite some strength, he cannot even be compared to that person. The young man smiled and said, Fierce character? How fierce? Chu Yue curiously asked. Extremely fierce. 1 rank 4 fierce beast, 9 rank 3 fierce beasts, 30 rank 2 fierce beasts were all slaughtered by that person within a blink. When the genius disciples of the outer court arrived, they only saw the fierce beast's corpse that filled the ground. Isn't that amount of strength fierce? That strong? At that instant, Chu Yue's face was filled with shock. She also passed the inner court disciple exam, so she knew the power of the mechanism stage. She also knew about the terrifying fierce beasts. To be able to kill that many fierce beasts before people even arrived really made her imagine how strong that person was. It would require a person of at least the 5th level of the spirit realm to do that. Who's that person called? After being shocked, Chu Yue also wanted to know the name of this fierce character. I want to know as well. But sadly, that person intentionally hid their identity. After taking the reward, that person did not open the door out of the underground palace. Instead, that person concealed themselves so no one knew who that person was. The young man shook his head and left. That person is quite strange, so strong, yet so low-toned. Perhaps that person has a secret that cannot be told to other people. At that instant, Chu Yue got more and more curious towards the so-called fierce character. It was because she knew that it might represent another genius disciple rising from the inner court. Oh no. But suddenly, Chu Yue was suddenly alarmed because she thought of a strange scene that just happened. When Chu Chang and Chu Zhen left, they did not head towards their own residence. The direction that they headed towards was the same road as Chu Feng. With that, Chu Yue knew that something was wrong and quickly headed towards the same direction as Chu Feng. The inner court was extremely huge, and there was quite some distance between Chu Feng and Chu Yue's residence. However, Chu Feng did not rush nor panic, and he slowly walked. He kept on going until he arrived to a desolate location, then he stopped there. Don't be so sneaky and come out. Chu Feng's gaze was cast towards a corner in the darkness. You are quite alert. It seems that I've really underestimated you." Before even finishing his sentence, two familiar bodies walked out of the shadow. They were the brothers, Chu Cheng and Chu Zhen. Chu Zhen's face was a lot better, but his anger did not decrease in the slightest. He even had thoughts of killing Chu Feng. "Chu Feng, I'll give you a chance. Hand over the 3 Saint Spirit grasses, kneel in front of my brother, kowtow, and apologize. Then perhaps I'll forgive you." Chu Cheng glared at Chu Feng and absolute confidence filled his tone. "What, you two want to rob me? So what if we rob you? You need strength to rob. Strength? I'll tell you right now what strength I has." Chu Cheng's body moved, and strong wind rose behind him. In a blink, he arrived in front of Chu Feng. His hand was in a claw state, and he directly attacked Chu Feng's throat. It had to be mentioned that Chu Cheng's strength was several times stronger than Chu Zhen, and he was not weak even within the ranks of the 4th-level spirit realm. However, his opponent was Chu Feng, the fierce character that bare-handedly killed a rank 4 fierce beast. Whoosh! Chu Feng dashed to the side and dodged Chu Cheng's attack. At the same time, one of his foot touched the ground. He suddenly spun, and after one rotation, his foot was retracted. Seeing that, Chu Cheng's face slightly changed, and he hurriedly backed off. But sadly, not only were Chu Feng's feet abnormally quick, his positioning was accurate and there was no way to dodge it. As he panicked, Chu Cheng could only put both his arms together and forcefully block Chu Feng's attack. Bang! Tatata read latest chapters on Noville.com. After the sweep of the leg, Chu Cheng was forced back several steps and a numbing feeling continuously came from his arms. At that instant, Chu Cheng frowned slightly. No matter what, he did not think that Chu Feng would have such powerful strength. That strength completely exceeded his expectations, so he had to treat the fight seriously. You know your stuff, but with only a body of brute strength, at the end, it is impossible to become useful. I'll let you experience the might of the martial skills. Papa papa. Ha! Chu Cheng continuously hit the acupuncture points of his body, and he suddenly yelled out loud. In an instant, his body expanded quite a bit, and his fists were also increased in size. Also, his skin turned from white to purple and veins emerged. It was quite frightening. A strengthening skill. Chu Feng squinted his eyes, and he could tell that Chu Cheng used some sort of strengthening skill. That kind of skill would not change the amount of skills one had, but their entire body would receive an upgrade. After cultivating to a certain point, one's body would not be invaded by the elements, nor can swords or spears pierce through the body. Their entire body would like a lethal weapon. He saw Chu Feng's change in expression, so Chu Cheng was instantly proud of himself. Although Chu Feng's strength was unexpected, he knew that Chu Feng's biggest weakness was that he did not cultivate any martial skills. The skill that he used was called Body of Steel. With that skill, one would be almost invincible while physically battling a person of the same level, so he had absolute confidence that he could defeat Chu Feng. Chu Feng, you can kneel down and beg for forgiveness, but not even letting him finish his words, Chu Feng's body flashed and disappeared. When Chu Feng reappeared, he arrived in front of Chu Cheng. A strong, heavy fist got bigger and bigger before in his eyes. Seeing that Chu Feng dared to battle with him physically, Chu Cheng sneered and he also threw his fist out at Chu Feng's fist. Clang! With the collision of the two fists, a sound rang out, as if it was the collision of steel. But after that exchange, Chu Cheng got pushed back a few steps. The numb feeling did not decrease but rather increased on his fist, and he looked at Chu Feng, who was not even pushed half a step back. How is this guy's body so strong? Chu Cheng finally realized that something was wrong. With his current cultivated skills, there was pretty much no one that dared to meet his force with force in the same cultivation level. But right now, in front of his eyes, not only did Chu Feng meet force with force, he even had the advantage. That really made him feel that the situation was not good. Whoosh! Suddenly, Chu Feng's body dashed in front, and he struck out with a single palm. He directly attacked Chu Cheng's right in front of him. Chu Cheng, who had 2 previous lessons, did not forcefully accept it. Instead, he aimed at Chu Feng's wrist and grabbed it. But it still wasn't time for Chu Cheng to be happy. He surprisingly found out that his hand grabbed onto nothing, and the palm that was heading straight for him also disappeared in the air. Thump! Ah! As he was surprised, an extremely powerful palm fiercely landed on his chest. Chu Feng's palm had a lot of power. Chu Cheng got pushed back beyond 10 meters, then fell on the ground while spraying out a mouthful of blood. That scene made the observing Chu Zhen widen his eyes and mouth. No matter what, he wouldn't have thought that even the Chu Cheng that was in the 4th level of the spirit realm would be defeated by Chu Feng's hands. That already exceeded his bearable boundaries. After all, before, Chu Feng was a useless person that could not be more useless. How did this happen? At that time, on Chu Cheng's face, other than pain, most of it was shock. He could not understand. He could not understand why he wasn't able to grab onto Chu Feng's wrist and got hit by him instead. Did he train in a skill? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. He's only been in the inner court for 10 days. How was he able to use skills? Chu Cheng felt that what Chu Feng showed could not be martial skills because within 10 days, it was impossible to learn a martial skill. But if he knew that not only did Chu Feng use martial skills, it was even the strongest skill in the inner court, the illusionary palm, who knew how he would feel. Brother. Just at that time, Chu Zhen ran over, supported Chu Cheng, and wanted to escape. He was really panicking. He only thought that if Chu Cheng could not defeat Chu Feng, he could only think of escaping. No need to leave so quickly, you two. But just at that time, Chu Feng appeared without even making a sound and blocked their path. Chu Feng, what are you doing? Chu Zhen had a calm face on the surface, but he could not cover the fear in his heart. It was because the current Chu Feng was completely different from the Chu Feng in his memories. It was as though he was a completely different person. That change really terrified him. I'm not planning on anything, just take out all the things on you, kneel and beg for forgiveness, then I'll let you go. There was a small smile that hung on Chu Feng's face, but that smile made them even more frightened. Chu Feng, don't be excessive, Chu Cheng said while grinding his teeth. I'm excessive? You all said with your mouths that I'm garbage, humiliating and insulting me in front of others. You even followed me sneakily, and you wanted to rob me and beat me up. Now you say I'm excessive? I know that you don't see me as part of the Chu family, but that doesn't matter, because I have never seen you as family either. Insulting me is fine, but to treat Chu Yue like that is intolerable, because Chu Yue is family to me, and she is one of the few people I want to protect. After saying that, Chu Feng's face suddenly turned cold and he extended his hands. With 2 sharp bangs, 2 clear slaps landed on Chu Cheng's and Chu Zhen's face. Those 2 slaps were very powerful, and the 2 of them rigidly fell on the ground. After that, Chu Feng suddenly extended his leg and fiercely kicked Chu Cheng's chest. How's your mouth now? Weren't you able to force your logic? Weren't you very threatening? Why aren't you saying anything? Talk, say, please forgive me. While Chu Feng was speaking, he slapped Chu Cheng 2 more times. After those 2 slaps, both of Chu Cheng's cheeks were left with 2 red palm marks and a trace of blood flowed from his mouth. For me to beg to trash like you wish. Chu Cheng seemed very unyielding. But Chu Feng only smiled and started waving both his arms. Several slaps continuously landed on Chu Cheng's face. In that situation, Chu Cheng's cheeks quickly started swelling, and his head became a pig's head. Chu Feng, seeing that his own elder brother was cruelly hit by that, Chu Zhen finally exploded. Move! Just with a wave of his huge sleeve, and with a slap, Chu Zhen laid on the ground without even having strength to climb back up. That instant, Chu Zhen truly understood the difference between him and Chu Feng, so it turned out he really couldn't even take 1 attack from Chu Feng. Chu Feng, kill me if you dare! Chu Cheng revealed a sinister glare and started bellowing. You think I don't? As he said that, Chu Feng took a dagger from Chu Cheng's waist, aimed it at his dantian and said, I will count to 1. If you don't beg for forgiveness, I'll destroy your dantian and you won't be able to cultivate anymore in your life. You dare? Hearing Chu Feng words, Chu Cheng's face instantly changed. There was no more sinisterness, and replacing that was incomparable fear. He felt the same as Chu Zhen. He also thought that the Chu Feng in front of him was completely different from the Chu Feng in his memories. He could really not be sure whether or not Chu Feng would destroy his dantian, or whether or not he would kill him. Chu Feng smiled, but his smile was very malicious. He raised the dagger up high and spit a single word out very faintly. 1. Whoosh! Before he even finished speaking, Chu Feng's dagger suddenly descended. I was wrong. I was wrong, Chu Feng, I was wrong. Please forgive me, please. Don't destroy my cultivation, please don't. Chu Cheng yelled out as if he was crazy, and his sounds carried some sobbing noises. With that, Chu Feng also stopped his movements with a bit of shock and smiled while looking at the current Chu Cheng. He discovered that Chu Cheng had his eyes closed, 2 rows of tears were rushing out, and his mouth kept on asking for forgiveness. Not only was his expression painful, his entire body was trembling, and underneath there was even a huge puddle with a nasty smell emitted from it. Chu Feng threw the dagger on the floor, searched around Chu Cheng and Chu Zhen's body, and finally he found 5 low-quality spiritual medicines, ground spirit grass. After doing that, Chu Feng went in front of Chu Cheng, lightly patted his face and said, "Look at yourself. Who is the actual garbage? You should now know that clearly in your heart." Ha. After saying that, Chu Feng laughed and left gracefully. After Chu Feng left, Chu Cheng and Chu Zhen supported themselves and stumbled into the darkness of the night. But before they left for long, a beautiful face walked out from the darkness. It was Chu Yue. However, Chu Yue's sweet face was already filled with astonishment. After quite a while, she muttered to herself, "Chu Feng, what kind of person are you, and what kind of strength do you have?" Suddenly, she closed her eyes, and she remembered the young Chu Feng. No matter how much people mocked him, he never mocked back. No matter how much people humiliated him, he never attacked back. A smile was always on his face, and it made people feel pity. It made people feel sorry for him. It made people want to protect him. Finally, Chu Yue opened her eyes and she suddenly smiled. "Perhaps we were wrong by looking at you as a weak person. Perhaps this is the real you. You don't need the protection of others because you are strong enough to protect others." At that moment, Chu Feng already returned to his own residence. He took out the 3 Saint Spirit grasses and the 5 ground spirit grasses out. Although the ground spirit grasses were only low-quality spiritual medicine, they were still precious items for cultivation. Chu Feng felt that by taking them away, it was enough to make Chu Cheng and Chu Zhen feel pained. When he thought of the brothers who always humiliated him just got a lesson given by him, Chu Feng felt extremely refreshed. It seems that there's a correct saying, "Against an evil person, you need a grindstone for an evil person." To talk reason to an evil person requires one to use their fists. Chu Feng smiled, but didn't rush and start cultivating. He took out his elder brother's letter. He opened the letter and rows of familiar characters appeared in front of him. It was Chu Goyu's handwriting. "Brother, 5 years has passed since you entered the Azure Dragon School, and we haven't met each other in 5 years as well. After a few more days, the annual family gathering will arrive, and this year, the head of the family will retire from his position. With his retirement, we need to elect the new head of the family, and Father is one of the candidates. To Father, this is an extremely important day, so I hope that you can return in this year's gathering and cheer for Father along with me." Although there were only a few lines of words, the meaning was passed on. Chu Feng thought deeply about the letter's contents. Every year, in the family gathering, the young generation of the Chu family would have a martial exchange competition to test the results of their cultivation. Although it was only test on the surface, in reality, it showed the potential of the younger generation, and it also decided the position of the older generation in the family. This time, Chu Yuan was able to get the qualifications as a candidate, because not only did he have strong power, he also had an absolute relationship between Chu Gayu. Chu Guyu. Within the young generation of the Chu family, he was the only person able to enter the Lingyun school. He pretty much was able to get first in all the family competitions. His potential was very huge, so naturally, it affected Chu Yuan's position. After some thought, Chu Feng found a pen and paper, then started to write the reply letter to Chu Guyu. The content was very simple. This year, he would go the family gathering, because Chu Feng also wanted to help out in his father's election. He wanted to demonstrate his abilities in the family competition and at least get a decent position. That way, he could let everyone know that both of Chu Yuan's sons were not mediocre. Or in other words, Chu Feng felt that the time to prove himself had arrived. After writing the letter, Chu Feng completely refined the 3 Saint Spirit grasses and the 5 ground spirit grasses. That time, Chu Feng finally felt a full feeling in his dantian. With his estimation, After refining another 20 Saint Spirit grasses, he may be able to have a breakthrough. However, those 20 Saint Spirit grasses would cost an astounding amount. Therefore, he put all his hopes in tomorrow's spiritual medicine hunt. The next morning arrived, and the sky just started getting bright. But in the huge plaza at the north of the Azure Dragon School, over 10,000 people were gathered there. It was one of the entrances to the spiritual medicine mountain. Chu Feng carried 2 bags. One was full of food, the other was completely empty. He was looking all around in the crowd and trying to find Chu Yue. Chu Feng, here. He heard a familiar sound, and Chu Yue was indeed nearby. She was happily waving her hands at Chu Feng. Compared to Chu Feng's equipment, Chu Yue was a lot simpler. She only brought a waist purse, and she had the same as the clothing as yesterday. Chu Yue, you're not bringing food? The spiritual medicine hunt spans for a whole 10 days. What are you going to eat? Chu Feng had a face of confusion on. Idiot. Don't forget that we are an organization. I'm only responsible for chasing the spiritual medicine. Rough work like carrying food would of course be done by other people. As Chu Yue said that, she pointed to some place. The members of the Chu Alliance were there, and Chu Feng had seen them yesterday. Indeed, 3 of them carried a huge bag, and those must have been for food. Chu Feng, there are different teams for hunting the spiritual medicine. After entering the mountain, we split into 3 groups. In every group, some are responsible for carrying food, some are responsible for surrounding the spiritual medicine, and I am responsible for hunting the spiritual medicine. The division of work was determined by strength, and the division of spiritual medicine was also divided like that. Chu Yue explained in detail to Chu Feng. With that, Chu Feng had a deeper understanding in spiritual medicine hunting, and he also learned the benefits of group hunting. Before being picked, the spiritual medicine had their spiritual nature so they could escape. Without an absolute strength, it was really too hard to try and catch spiritual medicines by yourself. That was also why a large portion of the disciples would choose to enter an alliance. It was because with strength such as theirs, the group power was indeed stronger than their personal power. After describing the methods of hunting the spiritual medicine, Chu Yue brought Chu Feng to the crowd of the Chu Alliance. After getting near, Chu Feng found out that there was one less person than yesterday. That person was exactly Chu Cheng. Yesterday, Chu Cheng was beaten extremely badly by Chu Feng. His entire face became a pig head, so he must have had no face to see anyone. That was why he abandoned his chance in the rare spiritual medicine hunt. Other than Chu Cheng, Chu Feng also saw another familiar person, and it was Chu Zhen. But the current Chu Zhen did not have the former arrogance. He lowered his head and said nothing, seemingly having received a huge blow, and it seemed extremely depressing. I, Chu Feng, am present as the last member here. Everyone welcome Chu Feng. She clapped pa. After Chu Yue brought Chu Feng there, she cheered and clapped. Seeing that, the several Chu Alliance members who were not part of the Chu family also clapped to welcome him and nodded at Chu Feng. They had seen Chu Feng's strength yesterday, and no matter how the Chu family saw Chu Feng as, at least they approved of Chu Feng in their hearts. But, other than Chu Yue and the others, the Chu family disciples did not do anything, and their gazes towards Chu Feng were extremely ill. Chu Yue, what are you doing? You brought an outsider like him to our Chu Alliance? Hurry up and get him lost, Chu Wei suddenly angrily yelled. That's right. The Chu Alliance does not welcome him. Get him lost. At the same time, the other people also started yelling. Their voices were very loud, as if they were intentionally doing that to let everyone around them hear it. Indeed, they really did attract the attention of the people around them. At that instant, Chu Feng frowned. He never would have thought that Chu Wei would welcome him like that. How was that even welcoming? It was obvious to humiliate him, especially in front of all the disciples around him. Chu Wei, what are you doing? Didn't you say yes today? At that instant, Chu Yue panicked, and she didn't know what to do. Chu Yue, shut up. What I say in this Chu Alliance goes. I can accept anyone, but absolutely not Chu Feng. Chu Wei didn't even give Chu Yue the chance to finish talking. Chu Wei, I never would have thought you. Fine, since you don't accept me, I will back out. Chu Yue finally got herself together. She knew that she was used by Chu Wei to cause Chu Feng to be in such a difficult situation. Chu Yue, I'm afraid that you have no say in this. Unless you want to leave the Chu family, you cannot leave the Chu alliance. Chu Wei coldly smiled, as if he already guessed that Chu Yue would have this reaction. You are simply. Chu Yue was grinding her teeth in anger, yet she didn't know what to do. She could only helplessly cast her gaze at Chu Feng. Chu Yue, no need to explain. I know that this can't be blamed on you. Chu Feng's face was very calm, and as he scanned over Chu Wei and the others, he said, Your Chu alliance isn't accepting me, right? Fine, that's fine. Remember what you said today. I guarantee that one day, I will make you regret everything that you've done today. Ha 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 ha, what a joke. You think you're some big shot? We will regret? You think you're worth something for us to regret over? That's right. Who do you think you are? Shameless. They didn't even put Chu Feng's words into their hearts. In their eyes, Chu Feng was only a useless person, because from when he was little, they already imprinted a mark like that on Chu Feng. This place is quite lively. But just at that time, a clear voice suddenly resounded. Everyone looked over, and they only saw two young men slowly walking over. They were a pair of twin brothers. Their purple long-sleeve clothing were very dirty, and it was so dirty that you could even see the oily shine. The two of them were holding sugar canes, and while chewing, they continuously made ear-piercing noises, and it was really annoying. However, when everyone saw the badges on their chest, not one of them was not surprised. On the badge, there was a pair of wings. It was the symbol of the strongest alliance in the inner court, the Wings Alliance. It's the Dragon and Tiger brothers of the Wings Alliance. At that moment, many people recognized those people, and all sorts of cries endlessly rang out. The male disciples revealed a respectful expression, while the female disciples were screaming like they loved those two people. Even Chu Yue's face became heavier. Chu Yu, you recognize them? Chu Feng asked curiously. Their names are Bai Long and Bai Hu. They are the same age as me, 16 years old. Tennessee, Bai is white, Long is dragon, Hu is tiger. They entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as me, but they passed the Inner Court Disciple exam at the age of 12, and they even placed first at that exam. According to rumors, they've already entered the 6th level of the spirit realm 1 year ago. They are real genius disciples. Chu Yue had a solemn expression while talking about those two, and it showed that those two were very important in Chu Yue's heart. 6th level of the spirit realm at the age of 16. After hearing Chu Yue's words, Chu Feng also reevaluated the Dragon and Tiger brothers because he knew that his elder brother Chu Guyu entered the 6th level of the spirit realm at the age of 17 and was considered to be a genius. Those two were a whole year younger than Chu Guyu, and it really showed that the members of the Wings Alliance were not ordinary people. No wonder they were viewed as the Alliance of Legends. Find new updates on NOV.com. They seem to be walking towards us. WWE, we didn't offend them, did WWE? As they saw that their target was them, everyone in the Chu Alliance started getting nervous, and Chu Wei was no exception. After all, the names of the brothers were too well known. Even without their status of being in the Wings Alliance, their shine could not be covered. They did not dare to offend those kinds of people, because if they did, it meant that they were sentenced to death in the inner court. But as they got closer, the crowd finally breathed a sigh of relief because they found out that their target was Chu Feng. You are Chu Feng? Bai Long looked up and down at Chu Feng. Problem? Chu Feng calmly replied. Oh? Hearing Chu Feng's response, Bai Hu couldn't help but frown and also started to judge Chu Feng. This is great. The Dragon and Tiger brothers were looking for Chu Feng. He just entered the inner court and he offended the brothers. Well deserved. Let's see how he's going to die this time. At that instant, the members of the Chu family were all happy. They all wanted Chu Feng to offend some big shot and then get killed by them. Who would have thought that Chu Feng actually did offend the Dragon and Tiger brothers? It really made them quite joyful. However, the next words that the brothers said instantly astounded them. Chu Feng, interested in joining the Wings Alliance? Wait, I think I heard that they just said, impossible. You must have heard wrong. The words from the Dragon and Tiger brothers astonished the observing crowd, and all sorts of complicated expressions surged onto their faces. At that instant, the people around them would rather think that they heard wrong than believing that the words were true. They could not understand why the Wings Alliance wanted to recruit Chu Feng. Just now, Chu Feng was even rejected by a small alliance. How could such a person get the respect of the Wings Alliance? Chu Feng, are you willing to join the Wings Alliance? They knew that the crowd was suspicious, so Bai Long forcefully added another sentence and emphasized the tone. Is this real? The Wings Alliance is actually recruiting that guy? Where did he come from to get the invitation from the Wings Alliance? Isn't the Wings Alliance called the Gathering of Geniuses? Why are they recruiting such an ordinary person? Not understandable. Really not understandable. Does he have a certain special area? But I really can't see anything. Even a small little alliance isn't welcoming him. How can he be someone strong? With that, discussions instantly exploded everywhere like frying oil, and all the gazes concentrated on Chu Feng. They all tried to find what was different about him to be able to be invited by the Wings Alliance. But no matter what, they could not see how that youth was different. But even so, everyone still endlessly admired Chu Feng. The Wings Alliance. The place that countless amounts of disciples looked forward to, and also where countless number of geniuses were refused. It was absolutely the sacred land of the hearts of the inner court disciples. The Wings Alliance. The dreams of endless number of disciples. It was a dream that could only be imagined and unaccomplishable. But at that instant, there was a person that entered the sacred land and completed the unachievable dreams of others. How could they not envy him? How is this possible, Chu Feng? He actually. But the ones who had the ugliest faces and the people that could not accept that the most were the people from the Chu family, especially Chu Wei. It was as if he got hit by a heavy hammer. His entire brain was buzzing as he was completely bewildered. Chu Yue was also like that. She stood next to Chu Feng, opened her little mouth, and her pair of eyes were flickering non-stop while surprisingly staring at Chu Feng. Towards the reactions of the crowd, the dragon and tiger brothers smiled since they were pleased. Then they cast their gaze towards Chu Feng. Compared then the reactions of the crowd, the brothers looked forward to Chu Feng's reaction more. They wanted to see Chu Feng celebrate as if he was crazy and as if he entered a dream. But Chu Feng obviously disappointed them. He was not overjoyed by ecstasy. Rather, he did not show any expressions, and his face was as calm as the water. The more surprising thing was Chu Feng's words that came out next. Thank you for your good meanings, but I do not want to join in any alliances for now, Chu Feng said calmly. What? I did not hear wrong, right? He refused? When Chu Feng's words came out, the crowd that was already like a boiling pot of oil instantly rose to the extreme. The good thing that countless of people wished to have in their dreams was refused. It was absolutely unthinkable. After getting that reply, the dragon and tiger brothers also frowned, and their faces were obviously displeased. Chu Feng, if you join our Wings Alliance, you will only have benefits in your future development in the Azure Dragon School. Are you really going to refuse? Bai Long advised and asked. I am very sorry. Chu Feng's reply was firm. Bai Hu was a bit angry, but before letting him break out, he was stopped by Bai Long's extended hands. Bai Long reevaluated Chu Feng once again and said, Chu Feng, I hope that you can reconsider this. After that, Bai Long turned around and left. After a fierce glare by Bai Hu, he also left in huge strides. That guy really refused the invitation of the Wings Alliance. Is he stupid? Looking at him, you can tell that he did not even think about it, so he must not know the big name of the Wings Alliance. Ah, what a shame. I'm guessing in the future, when he understands the strength of the Wings Alliance, he would be extremely frustrated. Future? If you offend the Wings Alliance, from what I can tell, this guy is not far from death. In that instant, everyone widened their mouths, and the sounds of all sorts of discussions continued without end. Even Chu Yue had a full face of confusion as she asked, Chu Feng, did you know what you just did? That was. I know, it was the Wings Alliance, the organization of legends within the inner court. You knew, yet you still refused. Chu Yue was absolutely speechless. I will not enter an alliance that I don't understand anything about. I'm afraid that the Wings Alliance are no exception. Chu Feng smiled, and his smile was abnormally calm. Not caring about the astonished gazes from all around him, he elegantly blended into the crowd. as if he never even put the Wings Alliance in his eyes. Chu Yue kept on looking at the place where Chu Feng disappeared at. Her expression was extremely complicated, and after a good while she muttered, "Chu Feng, it seems that I'm able to see through you less and less." Actually, Chu Feng was also surprised by the Wings Alliance's invitation as well, but because it was unexpected, he firmly refused. After all, there was a secret that others could not know in his body. The nine-colored lightning, the scary thing that almost destroyed the continent. If people knew that the thing was inside Chu Feng's dantian, who knew what the experts of the world would do to Chu Feng? It was even a possibility that he would get his stomach cut open. After a short while, in a mysterious place outside of the plaza, the Dragon and Tiger brothers were standing there with a depressed expression. In front of them was a young female. The girl had fair skin, sharp eyebrows, large eyes, a small mouth which was as red as a cherry. Although her face was a bit young, it could be said that she was a beautiful person and a person that just slightly undeveloped. But at that moment, the young female's eyebrows were frowning as she asked the brothers, "You are saying that he refused to join the Wings Alliance?" "Senior Sume, everything that we said was true," the brothers replied at the same time. "There is actually a person that dares to refuse the invitation of our Wings Alliance. He must be tired with living." The girl was biting her lips, and there were traces of anger that surged within her beautiful eyes. "Senior Sume, to be honest, we don't even know which part that boy was outstanding at. But he was mentioned by those two, and they told us to invite him. If we do anything bad to him, I'm afraid. What's there to be afraid of? We are already giving him face by inviting him to the Wings Alliance. But now he dared to refuse. We gave him face, but he just didn't take it." Riyadh updated stories at Enovelbin.com. "If we don't let him taste a bit of pain, where's the honor of our Wings Alliance? I'll hand this issue to you two. Don't worry. With my elder sister, I guarantee that nothing will happen to you two." Fine. The Dragon and Tiger brothers didn't dare to retort a single bit while in front of the beautiful young girl. "Also, I'll say it for the last time. Don't call me as senior. My age is no older than yours." After casting a gaze to the two people, she left. The brothers silently watched as the young girl went farther and farther away, all the way until she was completely gone. Only then did they exhale deeply as if a weight had been lifted. "This little girl is too hard to serve. She is treating us like slaves," Baihu complained as he wiped the sweat on his forehead. "Whatever. We can't do anything about her special family status. Ignoring her family background, it would be enough just by looking at her elder sister's inner court influence," Bai Long bitterly said. "On that topic, I like her sister better. At least she's a lot more gentle." "Gentle? You just haven't seen her when she gets violent. It's even more scary than Sume." The combination of these two sisters are called Rume. There's the beauty, but I haven't found the gentleness. But what should we do now? Do we really need to take care of that Chu Feng? Tennessee, the Ru from Suru means gentle, and the Mei from Sume means beauty. Let's give him an appropriate warning, but we can't be too excessive. After all, other than the sisters, that person also spoke. After saying that, Bai Long couldn't help but sigh deeply. Yesterday, in the Rare Wings Alliance gathering, two big shots showed up without being invited. Also, those two gave the same request, and it was to have the Wings Alliance invite Chu Feng, although they were not willing to. The Wings Alliance still agreed because those two people were existences that they did not dare to offend. The Spiritual Medicine Mountain was a forbidden land. The entire mountain had layers of seals. Unless one had flying abilities, they could only enter the Spiritual Medicine Mountain from the entrance. There were 8 entrances in the Spiritual Medicine Mountain, and all 8 entrances had elders guarding there. Only at the time of the Spiritual Medicine Hunt would they be open. At that instant, all 8 entrances opened. The inner court disciples who had a token could enter, and almost 100,000 disciples came in from all directions. This Spiritual Medicine Mountain is quite the mysterious place. Chu Feng wandered around in the Spiritual Medicine Mountain. His gaze was attracted to the huge sky-covering trees and the dense bushes. It was the first time that he saw such beautiful plants. Even the fragrances of the flowers were very dense, and the otherworldly scene intoxicated him. Ground spirit grass? Suddenly, Chu Feng saw a strange plant. It had a height of 5 inches with 4 leaves entirely green, and it was covered with faint light. It was the low-rank ground spirit grass, Poo. But before even getting close, the ground spirit grass contracted and prepared to escape. Whoosh! Seeing that, Chu Feng suddenly leaped, but he was one step too slow. The ground spirit grass already burrowed into the ground when he arrived. These things really do have a spiritual nature. Chu Feng dryly laughed, but he was not impatient. He scanned around with his gaze. He knew that the ground spirit grass could escape underground, but after a certain distance they must return to the surface, and the escaping direction was usually straight. So, Chu Feng felt that as long as he confirmed the escaping tracks of the ground spirit grass, it was not difficult to catch them with his speed. Whoosh! Just at that time, a light flashed and a ground spirit grass came out of the ground. It was obviously the same one that just escaped. But just as the ground spirit grass revealed itself, it suddenly burrowed back into the ground and continued escaping. Chu Feng rejoiced, and he strided over several steps, then leaped into the air like a sly rabbit. His hands formed into an eagle's claw, and he grabbed at the empty space in front of him. Whoosh! Just as Chu Feng predicted, as he landed on the ground spirit grass came out from the ground again. But this time, Chu Feng was faster than it. He did not give any chance for it to escape. Chu Feng's big hands tightly grabbed onto its branches and pulled it out of the ground. G. When the ground spirit grass disconnected from the ground, it started making ear-piercing noises, and a wave of strong, struggling power kept on coming from it. But that struggle only lasted for a short while before it got weaker and weaker. At the end, the ground spirit grass's glow flashed. Then it started to decrease in size. At the end, it was almost as big as a finger. This thing is really quite strange. When the spiritual medicine left the soil, it would lose its spiritual nature. And the spiritual medicine that had no spiritual nature would have a very small body. But those were only rumors. When a ground spirit grass which was 5 inches long changed into not even half an inch long, anyone would feel surprised when they saw that in front of their face. After taking care of the ground spirit grass, Chu Feng layered his hands and did a hand seal. Strong, absorbing power surged from his dantian, and within a blink, it completely refined the ground spirit grass that was in his palm. These things aren't even enough for you to fill the crack in your teeth, Chu Feng bitterly smiled. The ground spirit grass was only a low-rank spiritual medicine, and the spiritual energy inside it was several times worse than the saint spirit grass. He would need quite a terrifying amount if he relied on it to feed the divine lightning. As it couldn't be helped, Chu Feng continued wandering and went straight into the deep parts of the mountain forest. The spiritual medicine mountain was divided into the inner circle, middle circle, and outer circle. The outer circle had the low-quality spiritual medicines, the middle circle had the medium-quality spiritual medicines, and the inner circle had the high-quality spiritual medicines. Chu Feng was more familiar with the high-quality spiritual medicine, Saint Spirit Grass. But he also knew that the Saint Spirit grasses were not kind when they still had their spiritual nature. Not only did they escape when they saw people, they even had extremely strong attack power. According to rumors, one Saint Spirit grass was comparable to a rank 6 fierce beast. It also meant that without being in the 6th level of the spirit realm, you would not be able to defeat it. That was why the inner circle was viewed as a forbidden area and very few people dared to enter it. Chu Feng also didn't plan to hunt those scary guys, so his goal was the middle circle. The medium-quality spiritual medicine was the sky spirit grass. According to legends, it could stick to and quickly run across the ground. It even had the ability to become invisible, so it was very hard to catch. But luckily, it didn't have any killing power. Although the spiritual energy that it contained was incomparable to the Saint Spirit grass, it was still far away from the ground spirit grass. So that was why catching it was Chu Feng's best goal for this time. He kept on going, and all the ground spirit grasses that Chu Feng saw along the road were not able to escape his demonic grasp, and they were even refined at the scene. When it was noon, he finally reached the middle circle, and he quickly found one sky spirit grass. However, the sky spirit grass was very impressive. Not only could it change its route of escape, it really did have the ability to become invisible. Although the invisibility only lasted for a short while, Chu Feng always suffered when it did. Straight until the sun started setting in the west, Chu Feng saw at least a dozen of sky spirit grasses. but he didn't even catch one. I do not believe that I will lose to a medium-quality spiritual medicine. Although Chu Feng was still vigorous even after running for the entire day, he was helpless when his stomach started drumming, so he could only stop to fill himself up. As he ate the rations, he did not forget about his ridicule by the sky spirit grasses, and he swore to catch the sky spirit grass and to refine them. Like I said, don't come to the middle circle. These sky spirit grass aren't something that we can catch. Miss, no need to rush. I've already slowly grasped onto the escaping patterns of the sky spirit grass. Give me one more day and I'll guarantee that we can catch it. One day? In one day, how many ground spirit grasses can we catch in the outer circle? You are simply wasting our time. Just at that time, broken words came from the forest, and Chu Feng could feel that at least 10 people were coming close. Hey, it looks I'm not the only one who's suffering. Chu Feng chuckled, but didn't even raise his head to look and ate the rations in his hands with huge bites. Miss, look, that seems to be Chu Feng. But when a surprised yet also full of mock voice sounded, Chu Feng knew that he met a damn acquaintance. He raised his and looked. 10 silhouettes were staring at him, and all of them were familiar faces. The young female that was leading was called Chu Shui. She was 1 year younger than Chu Feng, and she could be said to be Chu Feng's cousin. Although Chu Shui was not as sweet and beautiful as Chu Yue, she still had a few points of looks. Especially her snow-white skin, which matched her name. Tennessee, Shu means snow, but she was the same as Chu Cheng and Chu Zhen. She didn't like Chu Feng from when they were young, and she belonged to the enemy force. Behind Chu Shui were 9 people. Although they had the surname of Chu, strictly saying, they weren't part of the Chu family. They were the servants of the Chu family, but because their parents had some status in the Chu family, they entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time. But the funny thing was, even those people looked down at Chu Feng. Oh, it's you, Chu Feng. The repulsive voice sounded again, and it turned out that the person who spoke was a tall and skinny youth that stood next to Chu Zhou. Chu Feng also recognized that person. He was called Chu Gao, and from when he was young, he liked to stick next to Chu Shui. He was Chu Shui's shadow. The thing worth mentioning was that, although Chu Gao had the status of a servant, his talent wasn't bad, and he entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as Chu Yue, and he was also level 4 in the spirit realm as well. In Chu Shui's group, Chu Gao's strength was decent, so it was obvious that he was the main power in this group. But that guy was not reliable. Seeing as he brought Chu Shu and the others into the middle circle, one could tell that he was a person who bit off more than he could chew. I say, Chu Feng, you're no good either. You don't even have anything after a full day. As she saw Chu Feng's dried-out bag, Chu Shui sneered and digged at the hardships. Is that so? With the 10 of you all together, it doesn't seem that you are any better than me. Chu Feng scanned with his gaze, and seeing the same dried-out bags on Chu Shui's side, he mocked. I really don't understand what Chu Wei is thinking. He put the 10 of you useless people in one ground, and the 10 useless people ran to the middle circle. Are you guys here for camping? You have enough rations? Nonsense. Hearing Chu Feng's words, Chu Shui got agitated and angered. The 9 other servants on the side were also not in a good mood. Especially that Chu Gao. He even pointed at Chu Feng and yelled, "If you dare to be any more unrespectful to my family's miss, I'll cripple you. If you feel you can, then come and try." Chu Feng cast a glance of disdain at Chu Gao, then looked down and continued to eat his rations. You think I don't dare? As Chu Gao spoke, he aggressively ran over to Chu Feng. Swirling wind rose from under his feet and swept the huge leaves up. He completely displayed the power of the 4th level of the spirit realm. But just as Chu Gao got close to Chu Feng suddenly raised his head, and a pair of chilling eyes shot out like a sharp knife as if stabbing into Chu Gao's eyes. Ta! At that instant, Chu Gao immediately stopped walking and also quickly retreated 2 steps back. The instant that he saw Chu Feng's gaze, he felt something. The power of deterrence. That deterrence made Chu Gao feel a chill in his spine. He panicked in his heart because he had felt that deterrence before. And someone who was able to make him feel something like that was an extremely scary person. Although he also felt that it was unimaginable when it came from Chu Feng, who was also at the 4th level of the spirit realm and just entered the inner court. That deterrence told him that he could not fight with Chu Feng. Goo. After deeply swallowing his saliva, Chu Gao instantly turned around and ran back. That scene really made Chu Shui and the others not know what to do. Why did he return without even fighting? Wasn't that a bit too embarrassing? If they knew that Chu Gao was scared by Chu Feng's eye expression alone, they would have felt that they lost even more face. Chu Gao, what happened to you? Chu Shu lashed out angrily. Miss I. Chu Gao didn't know how to respond. Useless trash. Looking at Chu Gao's weak look, Chu Zhu angrily bit her teeth, but she didn't know what to do. At the end, she could only fiercely say to Chu Feng, Chu Feng, you've really grown up. Did you forget that you got beaten up by Hong Fei when you were young? Let me warn you, you better never return to the Chu family or else I'll have Hong Fei beat you up even more. After hearing Chu Shui's words, Chu Feng suddenly clenched both his hands, and the rations in his hands were completely crushed into powder. A gale with him as the core started swirling, and it blew Chu Shu and others continuously back. Even Chu Gao had difficulty resisting. Chu Hongfei, a person that heavily humiliated Chu Feng before. Chu Feng would never forget that him who was only 8 years old was beaten up by the 10-year-old Chu Hongfei to the point in which he couldn't stand up. Chu Feng had stayed in bed for an entire half a month. The important thing was later on when Chu Guyu went and found Chu Hongfei, even Chu Guyu was beaten badly. That thing became a thorn in Chu Feng's heart, a thorn that would always be painful if it was not pulled out. Chu Feng slowly raised his head, and a dense cold aura spread from his pair of eyes. He said with an extremely cold tone to Chu Zhu, Chu Shu, tell Chu Hongfei that I will return in this year's gathering. Make sure that he does the preparations for kneeling and begging. And now, you all better immediately disappear from my sight, or else I will make you regret it. If they were under normal circumstances, Chu Shui would certainly talk back to Chu Feng. But now she did not have that courage to do that. At that moment, the aura that Chu Feng was emitting was enough to make her legs weak and body tremble. She knew that this feeling was called fear. At the end, Chu Shui did not say anything back and turned around, then went further into the mountains and forests. As for Chu Gao and the others, they also quickly followed, because they were the same as Chu Zhui, as they were unable to resist against Chu Feng's aura. After Chu Shu and the others left, Chu Feng plainly packed up and continued. He knew that Chu Hongfei was not an oil-saving lamp. Not only was he best at fighting within the Chu family back in the days, even today, he was barely behind Chu Guyu. Chu Hongfei was from the Chu family, and other than Chu Guyu, he was the only other person who was able to get into a first-rate school. To be able to get accepted by a first-rate school already showed his talent in martial cultivation. Ever since Chu Hongfei entered the school, he hadn't returned back in the Chu family, so no one knew what kind of strength he had. However, Chu Feng felt that this year, Chu Hongfei would likely return back. After all, his own father was one of the candidates. As for Chu Hongfei's talent, even if he didn't reach the 6th level of the spirit realm, he would be at least the 5th level. So Chu Feng must quickly raise his strength and at least reach the 5th level of the spirit realm. Ah! Don't touch me. But before Chu Feng walked far, a sharp scream came from the forest. That voice belonged to Chu Shu. At that instant, Chu Feng frowned, and after some hesitation, he ran towards the direction of the sound. At the same time, in an empty area in the mountains, an unbearable scene was happening. Chu Gao and the other 9 people were shivering while standing on the side with faces full of fear. In the empty space in the middle, Chu Shui was being toyed around by 3 men. Those 3 people were aged 20 or so, and their faces were extremely vulgar. But behind their body, a black iron sword was on their back. They were members of the Sword Alliance. Junior, no need to be afraid. We have no ill intentions and we just want to chat a bit with you. One of the males who had a full face of pockmarks was pulling on Chu Shui's purple clothes. One sleeve was already torn by him and it revealed her snow-white skin. This is quite white. I like tender girls like this. The other 2 were also touching Chu Shui's body. Their eyes shined and they were already drooling from their mouth. We are from the same school. Aren't you afraid that the elders will punish you if you treat me like this? Chu Shui's face was already full of tears as she struggled without strength. Junior, we are protecting you. The elders don't even have enough time to praise us, so why would they even punish us? That's right. Following useless people like them will only land you in more danger. It's still better to follow us, and when the hunt ends, we will give you some rewards. Hehe. It was already night and the three of them were extremely lonely. Just at that time, they found a little sheep like Chu Shu. How could they let that chance go? "Seniors, please let our family's miss go," Chu Gao begged while trembling. Whoosh. Before even finishing his sentence, one of the Sword Alliance members pulled out his black iron sword, waved it at Chu Gao, and a strong wind flew in front Chu Gao's body. Poof. After that strong wind, a bloody wound appeared on top of Chu Gao's legs, and with a poof, he kneeled on the ground. 5th level of the spirit realm. Seeing that, the Chu family crowd backed away from fear. To be able to use the wind as a blade and to defeat Chu Gao in one strike was, without a doubt, the cultivation power of the 5th level in the spirit realm. "Get lost right now, and I'll let you live." When that person pointed the cold, glittering iron sword at Chu Gao and the others, killing intent was revealed in his tone. As they faced the life threats, the Chu family and the others' feelings were shook, and some people even started moving back. Although Chu Shu was their master, and they had mountains of favors towards the Chu family, their choice was actually very simple when the decision related to their own life. All of you. Chu Shui's heart had some unspeakable bitterness when she saw the servants thinking about abandoning her. From a young age, they were people that stayed by her side and followed all of the orders since then. She wanted to scold, yet she was so helpless because she knew that she was already done for. In the Azure Dragon School, she had no influence nor power, and against the people that she could not offend. Even if she was tainted, she could only endure it since she still didn't want to die. Whoosh. But just as Chu Shu was despairing, a shadow leaped out from the forest like a monster and landed in front of Chu Shu. Bang, bang, bang. After landing, that person attacked with lightning speed. Countless afterimages of the palm brought killing intent with them, and they flew straight towards the three people from the Sword Alliance. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It surprised the 3 Sword Alliance members when they saw such a sudden change. They tapped the ground with the tip of their toe and suddenly leaped back. They focused their eyes, and the 3 of them discovered that the person whose surprise attacked them was a young man. But the person who was the most astonished was Chu Shui. She would have never thought when the people whom she trusted the most had thoughts of abandoning her, Chu Feng would be standing in front of her while ignoring his own safety. "Who are you? You dare to interrupt my good occasion?" The Sword Alliance member who had a full face of pockmarks pointed at Chu Feng while angrily yelling. "You are not fit to know my name, but you can call me Justice." Chu Feng faintly smiled. "Justice? Ha!" The pockmarked male moved the iron sword in his hands and countless of wind blades flew at Chu Feng. Seeing that, Chu Feng pushed with one of his palms and a warm force pushed Chu Shu out of the way. After that, he quickly dodged, and after dodging the attack, he ran straight at the male and struck out with one illusionary palm. "Brat, you're looking for death." Seeing that Chu Feng even dared to counterattack, the other 2 Sword Alliance members also pulled out their iron swords from their back and stabbed at Chu Feng with some strange sword style. Whoosh whoosh. Not only did Chu Feng not dodge, he changed his attacking style, and all 3 illusionary palms stuck at the same time, making the 3 iron swords collide into each other. Clang, clang, clang. 3 heavy sounds resonated, and the 4 people stepped back a bit. But from Chu Feng's palms, a numbing feeling came from it. Chu Feng also frowned and his expression became more heavy. He knew that the 3 of them were experts of the 5th level of the spirit realm, and they didn't even use their full power. The 3 Sword Alliance members also frowned. They already found out that Chu Feng was in the 4th level of the spirit realm, but when a little child who was in the 4th level was able to knock the 3 of them back, it meant that they could not underestimate the strength of the little child. "Boy, we are complete strangers. You don't need to offend our Sword Alliance for some people you don't know." "That's right. I see that you have quite some talent. As long as you are a bit understandable, we can give an introduction for you to join the Sword Alliance. I guarantee that your future will be bright." Seeing that Chu Feng wasn't as easy to take care as they thought, the 3 of them wanted to rope Chu Feng into their own alliance. Chu Feng didn't react as he listened to those words, but Chu Shui instantly got more nervous. She and Chu Feng had deep history, and Chu Feng didn't really even have any reason to help her. Now that the Sword Alliance opened such conditions, she was really worried that Chu Feng would put her to the side and abandon her. But She also knew that hoping Chu Feng would protect was beyond reason. However, the Chu Feng in front of her was her only hope. Sword Alliance? I think it's better that it be called as the Beast Alliance. Trash, like you want to rope me into your alliance. Chu Feng fiercely spit a mouthful of saliva. You are forcing this upon us. Seeing that the attempted roping failed and they got humiliated instead, the three of them got angry, and while holding the iron sword, they all started to attack Chu Feng. It was obvious that the three people used their true strength this time. The sword didn't even arrive, yet the wind did. Even Chu Feng had to narrow his eyes and treat this seriously. What are you looking at? You don't want to leave? Don't affect my evil extermination power, Chu Feng yelled at Chu Shu and the others first. Only then did his body move, and with the waves of the arms, countless invisible palms filled the air and attacked the three people. It's the illusionary palm. Careful. One of them recognized Chu Feng's martial skill, and at the same time that he was shocked, his sword style changed accordingly. A cold glitter surged out, and the three people displayed the exact same techniques and surrounded Chu Feng within it. Chu Feng. As she saw Chu Feng battling with three experts at the 5th level off the spirit realm, Chu Shui's emotions were extremely complicated. She knew what that meant. It meant that Chu Feng was risking himself for her, and that risk might very well cost him his life. Still not gone? Just as Chu Shui was hesitating, Chu Feng bellowed again. Miss, let's go. At the same time, the Chu family people also came and dragged Chu Shu into the forest. Leave me. Chu Shui flung away those people and deeply looked at Chu Feng with meaning. Seeing the Chu Feng that was surrounded by afterimages of the swords and doing his best to struggle, Chu Shui gnashed her teeth as if doing a very difficult decision. Leave! Chu Feng bellowed once again. At that instant, Chu Shui's frail body couldn't help but shake, and 2 sparkling tears fell from the corner of her eyes. After saying a thank you, she went back into the forest. Brat, you dare interrupt my good occasion. I will cripple you today. Seeing the fat meat that was right in front of their mouth escaping, the three of them burned with anger. The points of their swords were aimed at critical body points, and they wanted to kill Chu Feng. It'll depend on your strength. Although Chu Feng's face showed that he was holding on, he also felt the pressure. Against 3 people who were a whole level above him really strained him. Those 3 people, although they were not extraordinary people, not only was the sword in their hands strong, the martial skills that they cultivated made it so that the sharp weapon in their hands was used to the extreme. In addition, with them 3 combining their powers, Chu Feng had quite some difficulty going against them. The most important thing was that Chu Feng didn't want to expose his 3 thunder styles, so he decided that he didn't want to mess around with them 3 anymore. Whoosh whoosh. Thinking to that point, Chu Feng faked the move, then leaped into the air and jumped out like a lightning out of their 3-man circle. You 3 trash, try and catch me. After jumping out, Chu Feng taunted them and smiled, then leaped into the forest like a monkey. Want to escape? Chase. Seeing that Chu Feng was escaping, how could the 3 people let him go? They quickly chased after him. But they still underestimated Chu Feng. Even though they used their spiritual power to the maximum and used all sorts of martial skill, they had no way of chasing up to Chu Feng. There was always a distance between them. Damn, is this guy the reincarnation of a monkey? How is he so fast? This boy isn't simple. He has so much strength at such an age, and he can even escape from our sword formation. He must have extremely high talent. That's right, this is the first time that I've seen someone using the illusionary palm to this level. If he continues to develop, he would be completely unimaginable. Because of that, we cannot let him leave this place alive, or else he will cause endless troubles. The more the 3 people understood Chu Feng's strength, the colder their heart became. They already slowly decided to kill Chu Feng in the spiritual medicine mountain. The speed of those 3 are very fast, I can't even get rid of them. At the same time, Chu Feng was speechless from the strength of those 3 people, although his strength was way higher than the people from the same level. Against people who were a whole level higher made him feel a bit weak. But luckily, Chu Feng had plenty of spiritual energy in his dantian. He believed if he continued running, the 3 of them would stop chasing because of their stamina. However, Chu Feng was considering another problem. The power of the Sword Alliance was not small. In the future, after leaving the spiritual medicine mountain, It would be troublesome if those three used the power of the Sword Alliance to harm him. That was why Chu Feng was hesitating whether or not to don't do it or don't rest. So he was either going to display his three thunder styles and silence the three people, or he was not going to anything at all. But at the end, he batted that thought away. After all, killing people from the same school was a huge crime, and if any traces were discovered, there might be a chance that the entire Chu family would be affected as well. But just at that time, Chu Feng discovered with astonishment that white rays appeared all around him. Because the sky was already dark, when the light rays appeared, they seemed abnormally dazzling and they were extremely strange. That light became stronger and stronger, and it lit up the forest as though it was day. But what stunned Chu Feng was the countless amounts of white bones that surrounded him. The vast area of white bones were densely piled into the forest. They were as boundless as the ocean. Those bones were very special. Not only were they as clean white as jade, every bone was emitting a heavy aura. Chu Feng felt a choking feeling as he was pressured by countless auras like those as they were stacked upon one another. His steps became heavy, and his entire body lost its strength. Is this place? Chu Feng was very surprised. The special bones were not owned by ordinary people, which meant the owners of the white bones must have been quite a master. Only after reaching a certain realm in cultivation could one die without their bones decaying. Not only were they as white as jade, they still contained a certain amount of pressure to deter other people. There were things that Chu Feng couldn't understand. Not only did he not understand where so many experts came from, as it was beyond common sense to have so many white bones appear here. The spiritual medicine mountain was a forbidden land. Virtually every day, the elders would patrol around. How could they leave so many white bones here and not care about them? Other than surprise, Chu Feng was starting to panic. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed that it wasn't right. The more he thought about it, more chills were sent down his spine. After all, he was only a 15-year-old young man. When trapped in such a dark forest area, of course he would feel fear in his heart. That is. Suddenly Chu Feng's eyes lit up. He discovered in shock that there was a silhouette from afar calmly walking within the white bones. He could vaguely see that it was an aged old man. The old man was as clean as snow. He was wearing a blue robe, and on the robe there was the mark of the 8 trigrams. The old man was holding a very strange fly whisk in his right hand. The old man's face was smiling, and he was slowly walking towards Chu Feng's direction. He was not even affected in the slightest by the white bones. But the thing that shocked Chu Feng the most was the old man's skin, which was like jade, and the faint glow that his entire body was emanating. That type of special aura was like a saint descending into the world. Lord, is that the 1,000-bone graveyard from the legends? Just at that time, the 3 people from the Sword Alliance also ran over. However, they had no more thoughts of attacking Chu Feng as they were completely astonished by the scene in front of their eyes. Compared to Chu Feng's panic, one word was clearly written on the faces of the 3 people. Fear. 1,000-bone graveyard? What kind of place is this? Chu Feng's heart contracted, and just with that name, it made him feel uneasy. Damn, brat, you've killed all of us. You actually brought us to a place like this. This 1,000-bone graveyard is a danger spot, that pockmarked male said with a trembling voice. Danger spot? That's right. It's the real danger spot. No, it was a legend, one of the legends of the spiritual medicine mountain. According to legends, there's a 1,000-bone graveyard that was unreal, unsearchable, and it appeared in the spiritual medicine mountain at unscheduled times. But this place is really the absolute danger spot. The legends say that those who step into this place will not leave alive. Even the people who kept their lives would become insane. I never would have thought that the scary legend was true. We've stepped into the 1,000-bone graveyard. The other 2 were also extremely afraid. As they spoke, some words were nonsense, and it showed how fearful they were in their hearts. If I may ask, is this really the 1,000-bone graveyard? Chu Feng cast his gaze towards that mysterious old man who was holding a fly whisk. Although he couldn't feel anything from the old man's body, just by looking at his exterior, Chu Feng could tell that he was extraordinary. Without a doubt, he must be some big shot in the Azure Dragon School. But the thing that confused him was that the old man was obviously looking at him, yet he didn't even open his mouth to speak. Rather, with the corners of his mouth, They formed a strange smile. Oi, who are you talking to? Damn, brat, don't try to deceive us. But the unexpected thing was that after listening to Chu Feng's call to the old man, the faces of the Three Sword Alliance members instantly paled without a single trace of color. Can't you see that I'm talking to this person? Chu Feng pointed at the mysterious old man who was standing nearby. What person? You brat, you're really looking to die. That pockmarked male held his sword and wanted to attack Chu Feng. Don't bother with him. Something's wrong with this guy, and we should quickly leave this place. But before even letting him attack, the other two pulled his shoulders and started to drag him away towards the path in which they came from. G. But just at that time, an ear-piercing noise came from all directions. That noise was very strange, extremely horrifying, and it was as if millions of souls were howling and screaming about injustice. At the same time, Chu Feng found out with shock that on the white bones all around him, dark green gas was floating, and that strange screaming came from the gas. But the thing that made Chu Feng the most uneasy was that the strange, dark green gas was floating towards Chu Feng and the others.